to this parallel session towards Dakar 2022 related to the 9 World Forum in Dakar, Senegal, March next year. Bicho, meu som tá voltando, cara. The event is being broadcast. If anyone, now it's working. Let's carry on because we have to observe time. The idea of the sessions is to show the experiences that are shared in the World Water Forum. Although last forum was done in Brazil, we have other people who didn't participate, and the idea is to show you what happens in this event with high-level people discussing issues that are not from Brazil, they're from other countries also, and we have many friends here to discuss about the challenges of financing for universalization of the water and sewer service in Brazil, Latin America, and in the world. Although there is availability in the region, we have many problems. We have inequality regarding water supply and sanitary sewer. We had a recent discussion about the new sanitation framework. They mentioned values of 700 billion reais in debt to solve the problem only in Brazil, so we can supply this service to everyone. The goal of the debate is to bring the vision from all actors in the sectors, people with experience, for this discussion, because we obviously need not only financing, governance, and many other factors, so this should work properly, so we are able to effectively, according to the law, have the universalized services. A scenario that sometimes is medieval regarding basic services. So we'll have in this table, with the idea to bring different views, a government view brought by Helena Buiz, a colleague from the course at the University of Brasilia. She's at the MDR as Director of Projects in the National Basic Sanitation Secretariat. We have Sérgio Campos, a partner from the World Council in his activities in Brazil's forum and other forums, from IDB, American, and Chief of Water Division and Sanitation in the bank. Headquarters in Washington, Diego Vettori from CAF, also Latin America Development Bank, who will bring his experiences about the subject. We'll have the presence of Percy Soares, who is Director of ABICOM, Sindicom, bringing the view mainly from the private sector to the discussion, something that's being in the headlines with the new framework in Brazil. Friend Batista, who is in Stanley's Water in Portugal, but has performed in many world forums discussing the role of the regulator within this environment. And to close, as a debater, also friend Gerson Kerman with very much experience. He was president of ANA, of ANEL, of Light. It's difficult to mention all the positions. Sabesp now, more recently, with broad experience in the sector, who obviously will interact intensely with our speakers, trying to extract all their experiences to the debate in Brazil, to all who watch us. And after also, because this material will be recorded and will be able to help many. So keeping in time, I ask you also to keep in time. In the World Forum, sometimes we have 5 minutes to speak. We have a little more here. Each speaker will have 12 minutes, and then our debater Jason come 15 minutes for the interaction, and then if there are any questions from the audience, we can have this interaction. So thank you all for your presence, thank you for participating in this parallel event within the Brazilian Water Resource Symposium. I pass the floor to Helena Buis from the Ministry of Regional Development for her speech. Helena, you have 12 minutes for your presentation. Thank you very much. Helena, can you hear us? Helena, please. Well, Helena? Helena, do you have any problem to share? It seems that Helena has some technical issue. I'll come back to you, Helena. Let's see if the technical team can solve the problem. So please, Sergio, you have 12 minutes for your speech. Seems to me we're having a technical issue. Everything was working before the event began. Now I don't see Sergio, I see Elena, but Elena maybe can't hear me. I see you, Elena. Can we hear you, Elena? We hear you. So I think now we are listening to you. We couldn't listen to you before. So let's come back to Elena. Elena, you have 12 minutes for your presentation. So it's a pleasure to participate, to discuss financing, and I'll make a brief presentation. I am not being able to share my screen. So I work with resources from the budget. A migration from the market. So on the other hand, we see a reduction of down to zero in from 2016 onwards. What we have in hirings are from resources from the parliament. In sanitation, they need investments, large investments, so we can see a difference in the account. So I would highlight in this context, we can't avoid highlighting the new legal framework. Last year, June, not only the sanitation law, but other legislation betting in some main pillars, which is stimulation to competition for service providers to assure that the companies that are more fit, be them private or public, the new framework amplifies the legal safety, public and private in the sector. Another important issue to highlight is the issue of stimulation for the regional service supply to assure the economy and that no municipality is left behind when the new framework establishes universalization methods for water and sanitation, basically 99% for water and 99% for sewer through this new law. So this is a major advancement, and to define these goals according to the law, although they are reflected in the National Sanitation Plan, PRASAB, for a long time, but there was strong reinforcement with the goals reflected in the legislation. So another point we always highlight regarding the new framework is the need to prove the economic financial ability from the companies that provide the service through contracts, and also the ones that have concessions that comprehend equipment, to assure that the companies that are providing service have the ability to reach the universalizations go up to 2033. So it's an important mechanism in the new framework. In this context, we would highlight the bet in structuring good projects as a way to assure that investments, the qualified investments in sanitation, especially through BNDES. We have followed the concessions that have been done. Success in the auctions. We have investments in terms of, especially in terms of investment, they are approximately 10 projects in BNDES to benefit almost 300 municipalities, around 47 billion investment in the sector. BNDES, water and sewer, and in FEP we have structure in solid residues, in a pilot in drainage, in cinco corações in water and sewer. The auctions after the new framework, it's important to highlight Alagoas, Rio de Janeiro, Amapá have been more than 25 billion, or millions and an estimate of almost 40 billion investment in the sector. Next auctions for next year, Rio de Janeiro, Alagoas, Porto Alegre, Ceará, and Paraíba. Over 20 billion foreseen and a grant of around 9 billion. So it's we have been betting in the structuring projects as a way of assuring qualified investment in the sector. In this point, we highlight the fund that was approved, and we must have a degree about the use of the resources, and we'll have a fund for structuring concessions, especially projects that has around 715 million assured, and we expect we're able to do the first ones in the first semester of 2022. So this has also to finance the activities. We estimate 1 trillion investments in potential projects in the many areas where we perform, but it's not restricted. We can finance. So we see the bet of the federal government in this project structuring. It's a firm bet in this sense. So that's it. I had a problem. I couldn't share my presentation, but I will share the presentation from people at CAF, and so it will be a pleasure to participate in the debates and listen to the questions you might have. Thank you, Jorge. Thank you very much, Helena. Thank you very much. So we pass the floor to our friend Sergio Campos from IDB. Please, Sergio. You also have up to 12 minutes for your speech. If you want to try to share, I don't know if you have a presentation, but anyhow, let's see if it works this time. Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation. Congratulations for organizing this session. I will share my screen. It works. It's shared, Sergio. Thank you. Perfect. Thank you. First thing I'd like to highlight when we talk about Goal 6, that it's paramount not only for water and sanitation, but also to be able to reach the health, education, gender equality, and poverty reduction. One of the main challenges is in being able to access to drinking water. The people that have safe water, drinking water is 65%. Sewer, adequate handling, according to the SDGs, that in a number of people, over a third of the population doesn't have access to drinking water. Over 2/3 have no access, proper managing of sewer, and for 19 million people don't have clean air. The percentages and numbers are much more realistic when you see situations such as these, where we see people having to walk long distances to supply themselves with drinking water, and often they have to use toilets like these. And our settlings, the favelas, young neighborhoods have these challenges. I like this photo because not only it appoints the need to work in sanitation, but also the solutions we have must be non-conventional. We have to solve this problem, the sewer problem, in a short term. We also had the challenge of equality, the difference between people who live in this building and the people living right beside, and also in the rural sector where women have to look for water, and that's the challenge we have in terms of. Another large challenge is that the lack of sewer managing has a large impact in our rivers that can't be used, or sometimes they are used dangerously for leisure access, climate change. This is a picture of Cantareira on the last drought in Brazil. Same year, Bolivia La Paz was affected by this drought. That's the way people looked for water. The droughts, as floods, have important impact, and we have the challenge to provide resilient infrastructure. Another large challenge is that the Latin American organization is adding. Latin America is the most urbanized region, so we still have the COVID on top of that. That took us by surprise. This lady has a mask, but if she doesn't have access to water and sewer and protection against climate change, she won't be able to. In terms of finance, the first challenge is that Latin America is investing very little, 0.34% of the GDP. Sometimes water supply is below 50%. Financing we need to achieve the SDG, but if we keep on financing at the rhythm we are, and if we keep on looking for solutions, conventional technical solutions, we will reach the SDG in 100 years. We'll have to change our concept. We have to look for resilient infrastructure. We have to make our services more efficient, and we have to make a leap towards a circular economy where we use residual waters or other ways to create energy. We'll have to move towards a circular economy. One of the main aspects to be able to make this leap is innovation. We have to use digital technology to be able to enhance monitoring of water resources. We have to combine infrastructures to bring solutions. We have to increase the benefited population so they also contribute to a more rational use of water. We have to change the type of technology that we use to provide access in a way that we can have better managing of the infrastructure, and we can move to a situation as from left to right. So we have to strengthen our institutions, we have to review our legal frameworks and train our population. If we want to innovate, if we want to make a leap to the other dimension, we have to strengthen our institutions, our legal frameworks, so we can innovate, and also we have to train our people. Thank you very much. Thank you, Sergio. Congratulations for your Portuguese. It was easy to understand. So I now pass the floor to Diego Vettori from CAF. Please, Diego, you have up to 12 minutes to make your presentation. Please, Diego. Thank you, Jorge. Thank you, everyone. I'll share my presentation. Can you see? Yes. Okay. Well, once again, good morning, everyone. I'm Diego Vettori. I'm an executive from Sustainable Development at CAF. Thank you for the invitation to participate in this important seminar. Basic content of the presentation answers to the topics already raised somehow by Elena and Sergio. First of all, the challenges of water sector in Latin America. What is the strategy CAF has to answer to the challenges, and we'll present some operational examples that are ongoing in Brazil regarding this type of financing, and finally share some lessons learned and challenges that we saw in CAF's trajectory in the sector. Well, the numbers as presented in the previous presentation, some challenges in Latin America regarding access. We have huge challenges in basic access to water, quality water, 161 million without access, 72 million without access to basic sanitation, 320 million in cities without sewer treatment. There's an important issue that is about SDG 2, food safety. We use in Latin America only 25% of the agricultural soil, 75% with the agricultural potential is not irrigated. Regarding climate change, we have an indicator that's representative, which is the increase of 80% in the flood events comparing to the 20 years, the previous 20 years. Well, CAF to answer to these challenges in Latin America, we drafted a document called Water Strategy. I won't go into details, but if you have interest, it's available in our website in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. Our prime goal is to promote safe water to drinking, safe access to drinking water, sanitation for the production in the countries through efficient use of water, and reduce water pollution and the protection against disasters regarding excess or scarcity of water. That's the mother goal of our strategy. It's subdivided into other 5 strategic goals, and each one of the goals spread in the programming lines which guide CAF's performance in financing, as well as in terms of knowledge or technical cooperation that we understand is something very important for this sector. Talking about numbers, from the bank, CAF has a strong presence in the water sector. It's one of the core businesses of our bank through more than 50 years of existence, and over the last 10 years we selected or we covered practically 90 operations spread through many countries in the region, mobilizing $7 billion in investment in these countries. And it's important to mention that the 90 projects also catalyzed other 7 billion that can be mentioned as a counterparty from the mutuary, but also co-financing with multilateral partner agencies like FD, European Bank, IDB itself. So Anyhow, it's important to say our projects have this feature of mobilizing resources, not only financing, but bringing resources from other partners and sources. Regarding these projects, we can translate that there's a perspective from the beneficiary. We're talking about more than 20 million people benefited with water, sanitation, over 3 million people benefited exclusively with water. We also have important construction for flood control, 3.5 million beneficiaries along these last 10 years, and important beneficiaries of food safety from the projects that support agriculture, especially family agriculture. Bringing the point to Brazilian reality, in CAF we have peculiar performance in Brazil. Our work is concentrated in the subnational entities, states and municipalities. We try to bring examples of some programs that answer to these strategic goals from CAF for the water sector. So the goal that would be safe access, sustainable access. We have an excellent example, which is a program that's ongoing with the municipality of Sobral. It's almost half ready. That has the goal to assure, amplify the sewer network in the municipalities, assure the its efficiency, and there's a strong component of strengthening SAI in the municipality. It has a huge impact because obviously there are constructions in the areas that are most in need in the city. Another example of a project regarding SDG 2, which is preserving ecosystems and assuring water, turn to environment recovery. A program began with the municipality of Mogi. It's the Mogi Ecochete program that has this important or ambitious goal to reduce contamination of Tietê River that receives the first charge of contaminants in the city. So the goal is to reduce this contamination charge in the Tietê Basin and also create green spaces, linear parks, and reformulate some parks in the city to assure leisure space for the population, not only in Mogi, but also the capital city of São Paulo too, and the east zone that is supplied by Mogi das Cruzes. The goal number 5 would be enhancement of governments and sustainable management of water resource. We have the program of Santo André as an example. CAF has an important participation in the ABC Paulista, a region with historical problems of flood. And the Santo André program has as a goal to answer to this complexity. So it foresees a monitoring system, anticipated alert system, an intelligent system for this water management and flood control in Santo André, with many constructions for pipelines. We have many other constructions that are also connected with the goal SDG 6. We can quote, they are ongoing or finished. We can quote the DAIG program with São Paulo, the Quaririguaçu Dam that's in full execution. We have 2 programs with São Bernardo, a program in structuring with the municipality of Três Lagoas, a program that's in execution with Guarulhos municipality that also services the Guaiquiri-Baçu Basin close to the international airport of Guarulhos, program that is also in structuring with Juazeiro do Norte, a municipality in Ceará state, and a program that is being executed with the municipality of Teresina. These pictures of interventions, as you can see, most of them with Brazilian municipalities, that has been our strong point. 80% of operations are concentrated in municipalities. And in São Bernardo, maybe it's one of the most meaningful once it's almost concluded. Up to recently, it was considered one of the largest urban drainage programs in Brazil. It made this huge reservoir possibility, which is the Passo Reservoir close to the City Hall, and a giant construction with derivation of over 200 meters. It's in plain function and has avoided many problems the city has always faced regarding its flood control. Finally, I'd like to share the experiences we have had in Brazil with states and municipalities, some lessons learned that we'd like to share. We know water is in the core of sustainable development, so I don't have to mention all the benefits and impacts that investment in sanitation brings, especially in reduction of diseases, food safety, anyhow. And clean energy, education, equality, more job opportunities, as well mentioned by Helena's presentation. Investments that are foreseen for the sector, at least in Brazil, are very representative and can effectively contribute for the economic recovery to generate more quality jobs, anyhow. Another lesson is the importance of alliances with world institutions, like in this forum. This kind of interaction is important with the industry, with the sector, with other important players in the water sectors. CAF has participated in every forum, is active in many other committees, local and regional. We understand this dialogue is very important for the bank to seek to bring more resources to the sector, but also to qualify the discussion. Cross-cutting theme to meet SDG 6, water and climate, water and nutrition. As mentioned, the impact. We have to think on the projects considering the impact of climate change. And finally, to meet SDG 6, apart from investment, we understand it's necessary to focus the policies I mentioned. In CAF has financed technical cooperation to reinforce municipal size, and Secretariat of Construction in municipalities benefited by the investment. Importance of pre-investment. We have financed important technical cooperation to elaborate projects for engineering that are procured and that can facilitate structured programs. The ability for execution, it's important to foster. We know it's a huge investment and it's a huge challenge. We have to have strategies to execute all the investment plans and assure transparency and accountability of these investments. That's our line of performance, and I'm at your disposal. Thank you very much. Thank you, Diego. Thank you for the excellent speech. I pass the floor to another friend, Percy Soares from Abicom. Please, Percy. Thank you, Jorge. Thank you for the opportunity of being here and to greet all colleagues. I think we have a challenge. I prepared a presentation, how should I say, with 2 points. But I'd like to, Helena mentioned much of what I wanted to say about the new framework, so I'll ask I'll make two considerations that I think are more generic. First, discussion on financing of sanitation. We thought tariff would cover the cost of services, and this premise is based in that we'll have a cross subsidy with a tool, a basic tool, to assure universalization of service to all, because much of the population won't have the money to pay for the cost of the tariff. So that's a premise. We could adopt a direct subsidy. So I think we have an important point to discuss in the sanitation sector, because if effectively the cross subsidy with the scale and service providence, which is a mantra we repeat as paramount, Helena mentioned regionalization, it's the best way to redistribute and be able to take the service to everyone, or if eventually accepting a part of the direct subsidy could have a redistributive criteria that would be more equal and take service to everyone. So there's a discussion which is cross subsidy or direct subsidy. That's paramount. Second point, more for reflection, is how much the sanitation system has to pay for the investment in the water safety system. In Brazil, Dr. Kelman knows better, it's a sanitation policy. They have to finance independently, or is there a shadow zone between the policies that says they have to finance jointly? That's paramount, and in the climate change line, we must have growing investments in water safety. So the investments, how much will go to the water tariff? How much will have water resources? 100% water tariff says something. That's another critical point still in financing. What has been happening in Brazil in the auction. So another point is, I'll launch the idea to bring debate. I won't provide an opinion about them, which is the issue of the auctions. We have auctions with diluted grants and tariff reductions. What's the best model to generate sanitation system, make it work? Is it a mixed system, distributing discounts? We still have these things at the table, but the auction will depend on cross subsidy or direct subsidy. Of course, the last reflection point, if I admit that part of the population can be benefited by direct subsidies, the regionalization must be a central pillar in sanitation, because I will look for a set of other alternatives where I find feasibility. So, George, I promise I'll be brief, but I'd like to make a presentation. I don't know if you're able to see my screen. Yes, we can, Percy. You have 12 minutes. So this is a presentation from Abicon. It's worth saying we are an association of private operators with more than 25 years existence. Here you have the data from 2019. They're good until the next sneeze is issued. 1920, showing we have 70% of the municipalities serviced by state companies, 7% private. We see participation in the market and the investments that are much below, and as Helena mentioned, from the 23 million a year. Seeing the numbers from KPMG, that raises to 50 million a year. We can discuss a number, but we know it's a lot of money. And private in 7% of municipalities, representing 33% of the investments. Average tariffs show there's no the myth that the private has huge tariffs and the service will be more expensive. Well, we don't see this in the information at smears, but we see an average of investment over the above the private investments. So can you listen to a noise? Yes, Percy, we can hear you. There's a little noise, but please keep on. I don't know where this noise comes from. Here, the modalities of private operation in the countries, 58 are full concessions, and we have also a change by size of the municipality. You have 42% in private operation. We have investments by kind of operators, and translation apologizes, but we can't hear the speaker properly. Audio is very poor. We have an increase of municipalities. Translation apologizes, but it's impossible to understand the speaker. I don't know if there's something we can do, but okay, let's move on. Sometimes the network oscillates. The new sanitation framework, in terms of financing, we have two aspects, which is proof of the economic financial capacity, assuring the operators have economic financial ability to make the investments until universalization. I think this is an extremely important point in what we're doing in Brazil. So the goal is in the law, and the operator should decide to prove the financial economic ability. That's a positive point, and there's also a negative point, which is a limitation to 25% for PPPs and subconcessions. We show in this slide that PPPs end up being good part of private investment in sanitation, and then with the new framework, this is a point to be thought of. Regionalization is here in a mapping. In a map we have. The data that Elena mentioned of the auctions already done, 37 billion investment in these auctions, and 25.6 million grants to states and municipalities. The auctions, 4 in December maybe, we never had so many auctions. Translation apologizes, but the audio is very poor. We can't understand the speaker properly. Percy, we had a technical problem here. Is there anything we can do from here? No? It seems it's something from your network, Percy. Let's try. Try to say something. See if it's back. No, we can't hear you. They're asking if you have a headset, maybe not in your hand. Let's try PC. PC, say something. See if you can. Can you hear me? More or less, but it was worse. Let's try. Let's try like this. Let me try. I don't know. It's better now. Let's. So I was saying that regarding the municipal projects, we have a huge set of municipalities which have been doing their procurements independently against the regionalizations directives, more than 80 projects structured. And so this is the cross-subsidy direct subsidy point. We have to think of this when considering sanitation financing. As the sound is very good, I'll stop here and try to see how to solve this, and then I come back to the debates, okay? Okay, Percy, thank you. And I thank Percy once again for his effort. Anyhow, let's move on to Jaime Batista from Leeswater. Jaime, please. 12 minutes. Thank you once again for your participation. Thank you for everyone's participation. Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you. I will briefly talk about the new strategy cycle 2021-2030. Let me see. In Portugal, we are closing and discussing among us to say that we come from a baseline where we, over the last 3 decades, could have evolution with 96% of the rural and urban population connected to the network, people having safe water according to European standards, having access to fixed networks, 86%, and treatment of 85%. In this period, to be able to get this, we invested 80 billion reais over the 3 decades, and that corresponds to 400 million euros per year in average, something like 2.5 billion reais. So we have problems that are serious. Low economic sustainability of the sector, low structure sustainability in terms of organization of the entities and their connections, talking about small and medium-sized entities, low infrastructure, lack of regulations, and little attention to river water drainage. For the next decade, we have a vision which is to have excellency, excellent works, efficacy, efficiency, sustainability, and creation of value. In the economic and sustainable sides, in a growing trend of circular, the plan we designed will need investment of 5.5 billion investments over the next decade, 3.5 billion reais, 7% of what Brazil has to invest, this must be seen regarding population. For that, we have to create and implement strong public policies, reinforce the service regulations, and enhance, modernize the management of the services. And we designed a plan for this. We have 20 clear goals, 7 clear measures, about 100 incentives for the measures, and a mechanism of good management for the plan. So you have an idea. I'll be brief, but we believe in efficacy to enhance physical cities, building the lacking infrastructure, mainly for water, water drainage, connecting the high and low systems, connecting them to the systems, enhancing and simplifying public systems, and the control of autonomous solutions. We also have to increase and enhance infrastructures, that's priority, enhance the operation, modernize. We also have to enhance quality of water and investments that are predefined, but residual waters, and we have some problems. We enhance environmental control for water supply and water drainage, better treatment of industrial residue waters. We want to enhance physical safety of installations and the resilience because of climate change. We want to enhance equality and economic accessibility, enhancing the tax structure and have better tariffs. We want to enhance governance and structuring the sector with reinforcements of the political commitments, the service regulators, the operators in the states and municipalities, taking advantage of scale economies and enhancing the services to citizens that live isolatedly. We will want to have a strategic planning, long and mid-term, aligned to the national plans. We have to enhance contracts. We want to enhance management and financial resources, have better financing management, investments through support programs, enhancing decision-making on investments. We have to treat the residual waters, enhance the water efficiency of the installations. We have to enhance carbon reduction and enhance energy production. We want to enhance sustainability of the tariff policies, that's priority, and the economic financial rehabilitating and managing more properly the infrastructures we have with registry knowledge, recovery of resources, efficient use of water, subproducts, and stimulation and construction materials. Enhance human capital. We want to enhance information, knowledge, and renovation in the sector. Finally, we want to value the sector with economic and entrepreneur valuing. We want to introduce more value to the environment in the systems, circular economy, valuing subproducts. We want to value this service. We want the society to see that if the services cost €1, it must have a price of 10 euros. We have to pass this notion on to them. We want to install more external public facilities for public access. We want to install better sanitary installations for the families in need that need this. We want more transparency, accountability, and finally, we want to reinforce national cooperation regarding the SDGs we have and reinforce international cooperation. And for that, we work with these measures, but create incentives that are institutional, economic, and all kinds of incentives, all well defined in this plan. And we also want the regulator to have a more important role, which are the parts in the chessboard, and enhance the relation we have. Obviously, all this costs a lot of money, and all investments in resilience of the assets and modernization of the assets and carbon reduction, but the investments we will have to do in terms of rehabilitation of our infrastructure representing large investments, 5.5 billion euros, about half are for rehabilitation. That means we will have to have tariffs of 2.5, maybe 3 euros for cubic meters. But that, if we compare, they are necessary tariffs in an environment of efficiency. But if we compare it in terms of Europe, they have a family participation of 1%. I believe all costs involved are compared through three ideas: through tariffs, using the but use P2 through taxes only when it should be necessary for social reasons, and we want T3, which are transfers. We want to maximize, and then the available financing mechanisms will be centered in the more fragile operators in investments that are essential, that are structuring, that should privilege the upscaling. What regards to the more advanced operators, then we won't finance these activities because they have infrastructures, but we will finance innovative projects like carbon reduction with to create success models that can be replicated to all other operators. We have to introduce mechanisms for increase and reduction of financing regarding the objectives. So finally, we want to increase the ability to attract external investments through assurances and to make it attractive for the investments. And there's a strong governance mechanism and a monitoring mechanism. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure. Thank you very much, Jaime. Many interesting points for the debate. And now I pass the floor to our debater, Gerson Kelman. You have anyhow around 15 minutes to be able to interact with our speakers and make your comments. You have the the time is yours, and then we will open for Q&As from the audience. You have the floor. Thank you for your participation. Thank you, Jorge. I thank BRH for the opportunity. It's good to be back. I will begin this debate with establishing what's obvious. The sanitation services have to be paid for by two kinds of people, either the consumer or the taxpayer. So the cost of the service, CAPEX and MPEX, have to be covered by taxes or tariffs. Taxes should be driven to some sectors to where the citizen can't pay for the cost. I'm addressing the issue of, that Percy mentioned. Percy raised the cross subsidies, direct subsidies. Direct subsidies is the state somehow paying for part of the cost that the citizen can't pay for. So the subsidies coming from taxes, so paid for by the taxpayers, should be guided to the population in need who can't pay for the services, mainly the ones that still don't have access to water. So the first priority using tax resources would be to pay to help subsidize access to drinking water. But it's more than that. Sanitation sometimes is confused. Sanitation has many components, but I'll stick to water and sewer. Sometimes mainly the law operators look at the services as if they were alike, but they're not. The beneficiary is the family nucleus. The water I drink is not drunk by the neighbors, so the beneficiary is the population as a whole. If sewer is not collected in the street I live in, I'll have bad smell, children stepping on sewer. If the sewer is not treated in my city, I'll have polluted rivers. So the effect of lack of sanitation is negative for everyone. And the lack of water has an effect in the family. So paying for a family benefit has more goodwill than paying for a collective benefit. We have to consider that. So coming back to the subsidy issue that Percy raised, possibly like in many countries, we should think of driving tax resources from the taxpayers to sewer collection. That in the ideal world. In Brazil nowadays, this discussion is totally senseless because the national treasury has no resources. We, along decades, destroyed the treasury. So if we depend on resources from the national treasury, well, that's silly. There's no resources for that. Helena said very wisely that federal government, let's say, administrates the budget in a way that from the tax resources that go to sanitation, well, it's very little, and it requires changes in laws, and they are not structuring. So this is me talking. It is fragmented, less efficient. In the system we have today in Brazil, it pulverizes the resources we have in small construction without looking to the whole set. We have no budget rules like the one I'm mentioning. Public budget should drive resources for water supply to the population who doesn't have water. And if there would be anything left, then we would drive them to sewer treatment in the poor population, the people who can't pay for the resources for these services. So there is no concept, and we have a pulverization of resources that considers the needs of the ones closer to those in power. So sanitation goes through a political reform in our country. Now, another issue that PSC raised regards the auctions. So, will we have the capacity in practical terms, possibilities to have tax resources guided intelligently to the sanitation sector? I will already threw the towel. I don't think we'll have this in the short term. If we don't have this, we only have the cross subsidies. So the answer is that's all we have. It can only be cross subsidies. Would that be feasible? I was in doubt regarding this subject because Brazil is an extremely unequal country and an extremely poor country. So would it be feasible for the private initiative to handle this task only with the cross subsidies? I'm in doubt. In the sanitation law, I was struck by the result of the post law auction in Alagoas. I don't remember, but it looks like we have some other audio in here. Let's keep on. I was mentioning that we had the first auction in Alagoas after the new law, and I think it started with 30 or 50 million, and the winning bid was 1,200,000. It's not a rich state, so it provided us a perception that an increase in productivity, an increase in efficiency. Would it be possible to take services to all with cross subsidies? Then came the auction in Rio de Janeiro. I'm an advisor at one of the companies that won one of the lots in Rio de Janeiro, one of the bids. But in the Rio de Janeiro auction, the price paid that they had for the grant, for the right to provide the service, was of 22 billion reais, except all the investment, not to mention all the other investments concentrated in over the first years of concession to reach universalization in 10 years according to the law. And then regarding another issue PSC raises, what's the best way to do the auction? Would it be this one, that the one in power would auction the service providers, and then he has a billionaire concession and will be a popular politician because he will have a lot of money to do a lot of things in his term. Some cases are even worse. The one in power sometimes increases the tariff and does the auction or does it together. So the population sees that the inclusion of private initiatives happened with a cost increase. So for a normal consumer, she will have a tariff, an increase in her sanitation bill, because she generally only pays water and will start paying for water and sewer. And apart from that, you still raise the tariff. Would that be good? I think not. I think we have to be careful with the insertion of the private initiative, so it keeps on working. And for that, the policy makers in Brazil, we have to be careful so the impact of the private initiative in the consumer's pocket shouldn't be too large. And no more than that, we need to spread the benefit in the grant along the concession. When I was president at Sabesp, I would suggest to the mayors in São Paulo that a grant that was 4% of the revenue. And this money, 4% is is not definite, but this should be along the whole concession. So essentially, the public concessionary can't handle all tasks in a country that's so like Brazil, mainly in favelas, because you have to place the pipelines where there's no space. Things have to be organized so the service can be provided. So there is a need for a partnership between municipal authorities and the concessionary of the sanitation service. And the best way to align these interests is to provide a percentage of the revenue, keep this percentage dedicated to the municipality. So let me come back and make some specific observation. Regarding Helena, Helena mentioned the debentures for infrastructure, which are an intelligent way for the government to allow financing of the sanitation sector through private sector capital market, not with a budget. It's an intelligent way because it creates incentives, so people should buy debentures, and this money will end up coming back to the consumer. For regional development, I'd like to suggest that with the little money we have in the budget, it should be dedicated for the results. ANA has since 2001 an intelligent program which is to pay for results. And I pass the floor to Sergio Campos from IDB that I'm an enthusiastic of this system because there's a lot of waste in the sanitation sector when we have unnecessary constructions, images that have lobby to inaugurate a station and little lobby to make it work well. So it's the best way to finance these structures is not to finance the construction, and on the other hand, say if you treat sewer properly, here there's will be your payment along the years. That's a concept from Progis since 2001. Now it's almost deactivated. I usually say to my grandchildren, if you want to remember me by Progis, not because it worked, but because it's the right idea, and the financing institutions must follow the line. Sergio said IDB bets in innovation. Perfect. we just went through this process in enhancing the regulations, and I believe in strengthening the institutions. For, in my own experience, and also CAF, when Diego mentioned that CAF works focused in the subnational entities, municipalities essentially, and like in IDB's case, with a major worry in strengthening institutional ability. In the CAF case, I like to see there was a financing not only for water but also for sewer. Population suffers with drainage. If I was in Cabral's ship, I would define services of sanitary, sewer, and drainage in a single entity. Water supply could even be separate, but to separate drainage of sewer collection is anyhow a historical mistake we did in the country and other places. Regarding Percy, I already said. So I just wanted to make a reference to the 25% of PPPs, the motivation for this limitation that PPPs can only cover 25% of the business was in the sense of not making the state companies just brokers. So 25% was established without much assessment. If there were any assessment, maybe it would be a round number. There was not much science in this. So regarding the presentation from Jaime, I thought it was interesting to see your observation comparing Brazil to CAPEX. You showed us a 30-year evolution period. And Portugal is what we would love to be in a few years. I don't know how many, and I don't know what was your starting point in Portugal, but I thought it was interesting that the annual expenditure in average of CAPEX was 2.9 billion reais per year in this period. And if we would calculate, Portugal has 10 million, Brazil has 1,200 million, 20 times. So 2.5 times 20, 50 billion. So in over 10 years, 500 billion. That's just a sanity test of the numbers to calculate the investment we would need in Brazil. What impressed me was the OPEX, the tariff, reached 3 euros per cubic meters. That further on would be unimaginable. There's no payment ability in Brazil for that. So this raises an issue about which would be what can we intend to do, because we can't go over the payment ability the population has. And I close with this. I think the experience in Portugal over the last 30 years and the people at ANA to connect more with Portugal. So ANA has the ability to make the regulation in Brazil, and what was done in Portugal is an excellent starting point for us here in Brazil. Jorge, thank you. I was a bit over the minutes. Thank you very much, Kelma. And anyhow, all presentations were excellent. Your speech. I would like to know if we have one question from the audience, and then I pass on to everyone so we can move to closure. So I want to stick to time and end at 12:30. So I'd ask everyone to make their final considerations so we move towards the end. Please, your question. Good morning. I'm Rafael Guimarães. I am Vice President of the Rio Ribeira de Guape Basin Committee in the south of state of São Paulo. I perform in the state and federal river. Fine. So first I disagree regarding resources in Brazil. I think that's an excuse to include some demands from interesting parties in public processes in a country that when something has to be voted in Congress, every congressman has 10 million reais, so I'm against the statement that there's no resources in a country that doesn't update its pricing in water use. I think we have a lot of money in Brazil. So my question is to Diego Vitória. I'd like to know what's the path for the municipalities or basin commitments to establish partnerships with the entities. I didn't know about these actions. They talk directly to the basin plans, to the agreements in the state of São Paulo, especially the ones from Gaema. And if there's a path for these partnerships, I'd like to know this to be able to work. So thank you. Please, the gentleman in front. I ask you to be brief because our time is up. I'll be brief. I'm Vito. I represent CREA. I just wanted... We have a clear financing challenge. Apart from that, we have a deficit in the sector, but there's a challenge for financing water safety. So I think Percy mentioned that if this is from the water resources, maybe the sanitation sector could explore this idea. Thank you, Vitor. Thank you for the questions. Now I pass on to you. Helena, Sérgio, Diego, Percy, Jaime, and Kelman. So we close. I'll pass the floor to Helena. Do you want to comment anything on the other speeches? But I ask you to be brief because it's practically 1 minute for each. Thank you, Sergio. I just wanted to thank you for the opportunity. We know this is a huge challenge in financing some initiatives. The ministry is working with what we call the new framework, which will have to do with the shared infrastructures, and so we'll have a new framework that will answer to some of these questions that were asked. I'd highlight the growth and regionalization as a way to make service feasible. If private subsidies are the best option, we have been excited with what we have seen, but we understand there's space for enhancement, and we have been trying to do this through decrees. And I'd highlight especially the issue of the deadline, March 30th, established by Decree 1058, which is the limit for the municipalities to use resources from the union, from BNDES. Thank you, Elena. Thank you, Elena. Thank you. Let's pass on to Sergio now. Sergio, please. I think the tariff talk and subsidy talk is very good, but I'd like to emphasize the space for enhancements of cost efficiency, and also that our region needs a lot of investment because coverage of deficits are very important. So the public participation and private participation is important, but also the participation of citizens, because sometimes consumption, we use a lot of water. We have to make a more reasonable use. Thank you very much, Sergio. Thank you for your participation. Now, Diego, please. Thank you. I'd like to mention CAF has many investments with tackling the risk for flood, especially in São Paulo. I'm satisfied in participating. I'm at your disposal to participate in other events. And regarding the question from the colleague, CAF works with international loans. There's a formal procedure that has to go through COFIEX, the commission at the federal government, and there's premises. We can only have municipalities with over 100,000 inhabitants, but the interesting channels is from the municipalities. The committees have an interaction with the environment secretariat, so we are at your disposal to contribute with any kind of project that has this environment recovery, reduction aspects. Thank you, Diego. Percy, please. I know it's difficult to speak in 1 minute, but I just wanted to thank you. I think this session has to bring other sessions. We had important issues. It's an honor to share the time with you. I think dividing management of water safety, sanitation management is an open issue. Some insights were mentioned about urban drainage. We are looking towards the Porto Alegre option. It must have an innovative solution to join these two things. Thank you. Thank you, Percy. Jaime, please. I'd say all of us have to work to enhance water value. With the plan we developed, we are saying the following to the government. For the next 10 years, we need 2,800,000 euros. If you want, on the other hand, to make advancements, 6,600 million. These are options. You want to spend little money, a lot of money. The problem is if you spend little money, you won't provide sustainability. If you want to spend more money, you have to provide sustainability, discuss value of water, and have political decisions, because if things keep on like this, we are available to
pay for what it's worth. We're investing a lot in this area. Thank you. Thank you, Jaime. And Kelman, to close, please. Well, Jorge, regarding the second issue of water security, it has a direct relation to the worry about climate change. And a large part of the discussion is to reduce greenhouse effect gases, but another side is adaptation. And in case of water, adaptation means often building reservoirs to regulate the floods and droughts. So the reservoirs have a cost, and this has to be shared, answering to the questions, amongst the ones benefited, sometimes the irrigation, energy production sectors, but we have to develop mechanisms to share capex, opex of new structures. We need new structures amongst the ones benefited. Thank you, SBRH, to be amongst you. Thank you, Kelma. Thank you all. Helena, Sérgio, Diego, Percy, Jaime, Kelman, all friends that answered to the call from in a session in partnership with the World Water Council, remembering this is a trial to show what we have in these high-level debates. Of course, the goal was not to solve all the problems, but to see the path is long. We have a country, as Kelma mentioned, poor in large part with expensive actions, as showed by Jaime, and we have to keep the tariffs and economic balance. We have many issues to discuss so we can reach universalization of the service, of this medieval service we have with part of the population not serviced by water and sewer. So thank you all. Thank you, SBRH, to bring this forum. And we have another 2 sessions bringing these international experiences over the next 2 days. And we will also meet in Dakar, Senegal, to debate these issues with partners from the whole world. Thank you all, and the session is closed.